Hi, I'm Hyla.
Hi, I'm Hindy. Welcome to your Relationshift. Join in our conversation where we explore
The nuance and beauty of Tura's perspective on relationships. We spoke about fear a lot, how that really holds us back from being receptive. And we walked through a fear and spoke about how to walk yourself through it and out of it. And I think the next piece that we can unpack is in the attempts to take care of ourselves, protect ourselves, manage ourselves as women, we have these two approaches that you'll see women take, and though that is the martyr, the woman that doesn't feel like she deserves, and on the flip side, you have the woman who feels entitled and she must fight for her rights. And what are these states born out of? Where would the martyrdom emerge from, and where would the entitlement emerge from? I think a lack of understanding of femininity. Do you want to speak to that a bit?
Yeah, so I think you explained it beautifully, but a lot of women will look at martyrdom and link that more easily to femininity or their wrong view of what femininity is. So the typical, let's say, mom who is hardworking, she has no time for herself. She is giving up everything for her children, for her husband. And in ways, it could also be something that was encouraged for her to do, either by, people who are older than her, other women, maybe even schooling. And she gets the messaging of sacrifice. Like, you have to make that sacrifice. And as women, we also are naturally prone to love our children and give up things for our children. I think even the way that a child grows, like from a baby who is completely helpless without their mother, inspires that reaction in the mother to just stop everything and take care of that child. And I don't want to say it's a bad thing. It's a wonderful thing that a woman stops everything and gives up her everything to take care of that helpless, beautiful child, that innocent soul. And it could be that she takes it and kind of runs with it, runs with that whole experience. I know for myself, that is definitely what happened to me. I was not ready for my first. Um, I always tell people, people will compare, what was the harder transition for you? 2 to 3 kids or 3 to 4 kids. I've heard people say literally 6 to 7 kids was hard for them. And for me, the hardest transition was 0 to 1, where
Mm.
I had my own life. I had my own focus. I had a very full, passionate life. And then suddenly I had this child, and everything shifted. And
Mm.
that sacrifice, putting myself aside, was a huge transition for me. And when I finished recovering from it, I kind of never left it though. So like, even though that child then grew a little bit older and was more independent and was able to do things on her own, I still kind of stayed in that space of I had left that life behind. And I think that is the shared experience of a lot of women.
Yeah, I definitely, not to the fault of the teachers necessarily, but the messaging that I got, at the bias your hoodie class, or just the Messiah passed down from woman to woman, is that's your job. Your job is to be there for your husband and children, support them, nurture them, feed them, encourage them, and it kind of gives the impression that you exist for them, and that automatically has a side effect of putting yourself second. Um, if you, everyone,
Yeah.
you want to be a good wife, you want to be a good mother. So that's what you're doing. You're feeding your husband, you're feeding your children, you're, a good wife feeds her husband, has dinner, whatever, all these images that people have of the ultimate wife and mother really can, if a woman's trying to succeed in that path, really can lead you to that martyr state of disappearing into that role.
Yeah, 100%. And I think personality plays in a little bit to that. Like, I
Right.
have to say, and I'll be accountable, take ownership over who I am and my experience. I do think that I went into marriage subconsciously ready for that, and almost in a way, um, willing to just let go of myself and embrace what being a wife I thought was supposed to be and what being a mother was supposed to be. It was very romanticized in my mind. And maybe, again, being accountable, maybe I hadn't worked through enough inside of myself to really feel my own value. So, in ways, it was easy for me to just let go of something that wasn't an essentially valuable me and just let go of that and embrace this role that maybe now will give me more value, right? So if I'm a good mom, if I'm defining martyrdom as being a good mother and being a good wife, then suddenly I feel good about myself and I feel like I have value because I'm fulfilling a role. I'm important. I mean something to someone, which is totally unhealthy, right?
Yeah, it's so interesting because I think even another piece that maybe I came to it with was it's almost like it's almost like you don't have to worry about, in a certain way, you don't have to worry about yourself because you don't really have to work on yourself. Your whole function is to manage, serve, help the people around you. So it kind of gives you a free pass, I guess. Like you you're just there to, like, the spotlight is on your husband and you're the supporting role. Like you're the assistant. You're not the main teacher, so you don't carry that level of responsibility because
Yeah, I know
which
for myself, like it takes an effort to take care of yourself, to eat well, to exercise, to learn Tyra, um, to push yourself. And
yeah, I'm
I
saying
could
like
I
things like,
agree.
oh, I just can't do this because I'm a mom. Like I can't daven, and like it just, in a way, it is easy. It feels easier. Like I just don't have to work on myself right now. That's on pause.
Right. Which now bothers me so much, right? To think like that I was telling myself that kind of messaging, which sounds very much like a victim kind of messaging, like I'm powerless here. I have no way to feed myself properly or take care of myself or take my spiritual um, life into account. I just need to be swept into this period of my life. And when I'm done, I'll look at those things again. I just don't have the ability to look at it right now. That internal messaging, which was happening all the time, really put me into a victim mindset.
Right. Very uncomfortable. That brings us to the other side, which is, because it's not really how it's supposed to be, the intention was not martyrdom. So there's a resentment, there's a frustration, and you're losing yourself. And that's gonna feel uncomfortable. So then, in efforts to not lose yourself and efforts to save yourself, comes the flip side of entitlement, where you hear a woman say things like, I don't know, give me an example.
Well, I'll hear the messaging of you have to take care of yourself because no one's going to do it for you. That the messaging of like I deserve to have time for myself. I deserve to, have a nutritionist and a person who exercises with me. I deserve to have an hour to myself every day. It's not even about these examples, it's about the energy with which you are expressing your needs. The demand in that energy is, I understand where it's coming from. It's coming from that deep desire to not be a martyr, but it's also not ultimately feminine. It's not receptive. It's not gracious. It's not humble. It's demanding.
I experienced at some points, and I've definitely heard this from women. Why me? Why am I stuck at home with the kids? Why is it the whole responsibility falling on me? Why is the responsibility of the marriage on me? Um, I'm stuck and I'm frustrated. So why is it like this? Why are women second class, and why am I treated this way? And then it might look like a woman having a conversation with her husband and saying, okay, domestic roles have to be split 50-50, and I want everything to be equal, and I want to feel like you're as involved in, being with the kids as I am, and we're not addressing the core issue. So those solutions are not going to cut it.
Beautiful. So, what I'm hearing you say, which is so interesting, is it's almost like we're taking the whole history of women since the beginning of creation and how women have been treated since the beginning of time. And I'm bringing all that history to my relationship as opposed to, right? Like that, all that back
Baggage.
baggage to the relationship, as opposed to what I'm hearing from you, which is that even coming up in my relationship with my husband? Is that even coming up in my relationship with, I don't know, my neighbor? Am I being attacked? Am I being considered by them as a second class citizen? Am I being disrespected by them? Or is it possible that in this relationship with just me and this other person, that there is value, they see my value and I see their value, and there could just be this interaction that doesn't have to be stemming from a history of defensiveness and victimhood.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the affects of being in that space of being very assertive or demanding or having those expectations, because a lot of people will say, well, I got what I wanted. I expressed my needs and made sure to be assertive, and then I got what I wanted. So what's wrong with that?
So again, I think it's still, like you said, it's still coming from that defensive, victimized place, which is not going to feel good if you would like be in silence with yourself and listen to what it is that you really want. It's not to have to push your way in, because that automatically tells you that it sends the message, oh, you're not inherently valuable. You have to insert yourself, stand up for yourself, fight for yourself. So it's just going to feed back into that narrative. And as you mentioned before, it doesn't give a space for others to collaborate. And in the case of your husband, it doesn't really allow for him to contribute. When I demand you do something, then you do it. And it's like a boss and employee interaction. It's not meaningful for a relationship. My husband must treat me in this way because I deserve to be treated in this way. And he does. He obliges and he treats you in the way that you said he must, and because you deserve. And then it feels lifeless.
So it's basically just reaffirming the victimhood, and it also just makes you feel even more lonely and unsafe.
We're going to come from understanding the Mekabel, which is the active receiver. She's an equal player in the creation process. There's no higher or lower. There's a flow of energy that comes and goes. And from that very, very pure space, a woman can ask herself, how do I want to show up to life? Who do I want to be? You know, when one of the questions that we were asked and we ask women is, what brings you joy? And why is that question so important? Because in this conversation where a woman is in that survival fighting mode of I must, I need to, I have to, or she's just completely doormatted herself, a woman in that space hasn't sat with herself and said, what do I love? And really, really listened to that voice. So many times, you could tell me if this is your experience. When I would ask that a woman that question, she says, I don't know. A woman will say, oh, that's a really interesting question. I never thought about that. What do I enjoy? I can tell you what I do. And it's interesting because I didn't know the answer to the question. And even when I searched and found some answers, they were kind of like, they were temporary placeholders, because it takes time. It takes time to get to know yourself, to give yourself opportunities to discover what it is that you enjoy. But where does that fit in the martyrdom, entitlement roller coaster, where a woman is sitting with herself and thinking about who she is and what she enjoys and what is her unique light that she's bringing to the world?
It's a very good question. So what I'm hearing from you is that the being in that mode of martyrdom or being in the mode of entitlement and demanding your needs puts you in a space that doesn't allow you to access joy, doesn't allow you to access that part of yourself. I mean, I know for me, when I was asked that question, I realized in retrospect that my brain wasn't able to even format those thoughts, because every time that I had thought, hey, I would love to do this, I would love to go to the beach, I would love to just go on a hike, but my brain kept on shutting it down. No, you have kids. No, you have responsibilities. No, that's too expensive. So every single time my brain shut that down, it literally shut down the joy release in my brain, until it came to a certain point where my mind was like, why should I even have those ideas anymore if they keep on getting shut down? So even just physically in my brain, I wasn't able to think, what would I love? What do I want? What would make me happy? Because it had just been shut down so often. Again, me coming from that space of the martyrdom mindset. So someone who is in that space, in ways, has shut themselves down from really getting in touch with themselves, who they are, their joy, their purpose in life. Now, the person who's coming from the more entitled mindset may actually be much more attuned to what they want and what they want to achieve or what their purpose is. Problem is that when you're in that space of that go-getter space, or that defensive space of needing to protect yourself all the time, even when you have achieved those goals of what you wanted or what you would like, you don't experience the joy because there's no safety to experience it. There's no receptivity for it to actually even land, because you're not in a receptive space. So there's no Kaylee for the joy.
Yeah,
So it's a very painful experience.
Nobody gave it to you. You took it. It doesn't feel good to take things, right? You took your trip with your friends. You took your tennis bracelet. You took for yourself because you deserve it. And that, like you said, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel deeply nourishing. Also, what you said is that those women might be more aware of what they enjoy. So that is an important. We're not looking to let go of that self-awareness. We're just going to look at how to engage with it. What perspective to have when approaching it, to bring humility to it and gratitude. speaking to your experience of being the martyrdom genre and having shut down your joy voice, um, what did coming out of that look like?
Yeah, it was totally a journey. Like trying to, like, well, kind of like what you were saying, experimenting with all sorts of things, linking this back to our taking ownership conversation. But I had to try all sorts of different things and try them again and again because things are always changing, right? So something might have brought me joy one day, it doesn't bring me joy the next day. Um, and also experimenting with um, opening up to joy. I know what happened for me a lot. And another thing that shut down my voice of joy was this strong belief that if things are good, then at a certain point, they're not going to be good any longer, right? Things can only be good for so long and then the shoe will drop. So
Mm.
the fear of even experiencing joy was also stopping me from experiencing joy. So there was a lot of like experimentation of, okay, does this feel good? And also, ooh, am I experiencing fear? And then that's what's stopping me from feeling joy. Is there a way that I could walk through the fear, kind of like what we spoke about last time, and then let myself just relax into being open to letting joy sink in? It was a lot of self-exploration.
It's so interesting because I think what you're pointing to is that other reasons why we might go to either side, martyrdom, entitlement, is because of how vulnerable the wholesome space is, how it really depends on a real essential value to kind of go in with your eyes open and say, wow, I'm receiving this, it's happening. So I definitely relate to that. Why is that okay? Why do I deserve that? Um or it's going to come in exchange for something else. If you're going to get this, then something else is going to have to give.
Well, I mean, think about the imagery of why is it? Because it's so open, right? It's so innocent. It's so childlike. It's it basically lacks barriers. It lacks shields. That's why it's that's why it looks so vulnerable. Did you ever have that experience of feeling a sense of pride? Like imagine, you have like a little pre-Renee graduation or like a sitter party, and your child is up there singing, and you're just like smiling, watching his or her delicious face, and then you feel someone looking at you. It's like, oh my gosh, this is my moment right now. Like I don't want you
Mm,
to see this. This is it's so vulnerable. It's so internal. It's so um,
private.
no barriers. It's just you. And we're so not used to being in that space of not shielding ourselves that it feels almost impossible to look at it
Yeah,
sometimes.
I think it's interesting because there's so many things that we are thinking about managing in our experiences. So then it becomes about that, whether it's fear or, you know, managing the judgment of others. The example that's coming up for me is dancing at a wedding. Like just feeling potentially like that's something I would just want to let go and dance and just, let the music flow through you. But then it's like people are watching, you're in public. Why are you so happy? Do you really care so much about this person? Um,
Are you
I
a
don't know.
sister? Are you a best
What?
friend? Are you a sister? Were
Right.
you
Like
her
the
roommate in
questions of like,
seminary?
why are you here? Right. Like, you need permission. What is that? It's like permission. You need permission to feel a certain amount of joy. You need permission to feel a certain amount of pain. Like, you have to be a certain amount of closeness to a person to feel a certain. I don't know. What is that?
It's not okay. Whatever it is, it's not okay. And all those shields and blockages and walls that we've put up to protect ourselves from the judgment or the outside voices that we think other people are calling out to us, they're not true
Which are
and they're
really
not
our
real.
own,
And yeah, which
projected
we're just
onto
projecting
others.
sometimes, right? Like we're thinking that about other people, and then we're thinking other people are saying that about ourselves. We just have to do some internal work and either let those go or stop being so judgmental ourselves. There's something so beautiful about seeing a person in a state of joy, just pure happiness. How beautiful is it to witness someone without blockages, without shields? And I think I could just speak from my own personal experience that I think it was very hard for the people around me to witness my colorless, joyless experience. It was hard for them to see me suffering inside my own internal world. Maybe they weren't even aware to it, but it's not something that's pleasant to witness, seeing someone's life source drowning, just drowning in.
I would feel very uncomfortable around women who were operating from a martyrdom space. And also, I guess, frustrated because I felt like, oh, I guess that's how I'm supposed to be. And if I'm not, I'm being selfish. So, and then let's say the people in the entitlement space, I'm like, well, that doesn't look like a solution either. And then also, I don't know if you're saying it's so beautiful to see somebody with pure, uninhibited joy. I'm probably going to be uncomfortable if I see that,
Mm.
because it's also, how are you doing that? So how does being receptive help me?
So it's such a good question. How to work away from this quandary that we as women find ourselves in. If the martyrdom is no good, and if the asserting my or demanding my rights is not working for me, so what can I do to work away from those things and step into the freedom of femininity? So when it comes to relationships, we talk a lot about the spheres. One of the spheres is called Hod. Hod, Hod, Hey Vav Dalid. It has a few translations in English, and it's interesting to see how much is encapsulated in one Hebrew word. So Hod is defined as humility. It's also defined as splendor. And would you give any other words, Chayla? Translate that into
Um,
English.
recognition from Hoda,
Acknowledge.
acknowledge.
Yeah, like the word Haida, exactly. So it's interesting to look at like all three translations. How do those all link into this one word? So Haid is again an energy. It's a way that Hashem created the world, and it's an energy that we all have, that we could access, and that we could also um, interface with the world through. And it starts with humility. So humility is not saying that I don't have anything to me and I don't have any talents and totally not recognizing who I am. It's actually deeply seeing my essential value and also being able to make space for someone else at the same time. When I'm able to achieve that, when I'm able to see who I really am and also have the humility to make space for others, right? So the typical example is Moshe Rabbeinu was the humblest of all men. It doesn't mean that he didn't think that he was a qualified leader or that he didn't have a special connection with God. It means that he felt that somebody else could have done the job just as well, right? He made space for others. He didn't think that he was the only one to ever do this, that somebody else probably could have done the same. There was space for
Yeah, that
something else, for something more.
the qualities that made him who he was were given to him, and they could have been given to somebody else, and then that person would have been the leader. It wasn't that he procured them, created them, made them into being. He was given them by God.
The ability to be able to deeply see yourself, and deeply acknowledge that this is given to you by God, right, is what begets that acknowledging humility, right? That's what links together those two English definitions for the word hide. The last one, which is the splendor, is when you could deeply see who yourself and not feel hung up around it, not feel embarrassed by it, not feel like it has to do with you. It has to do with receiving a gift from God. You're able to shine. You're able to explode with the greatness of who you are. And you're able to celebrate who you are. And it's not in any way an egotistical experience. It's actually a very subtle experience of just glowing. Right? Do you ever see a woman or just see someone who's just glowing? Do you ever like greet someone? They just look so internally happy. There's just this inner joy that's just coming out of their face. It's not
Purity.
makeup. It's just a pure joy that's coming out from them. That's an experience of height where there's that combination of those three definitions of deep acknowledgement, humility, and then the splendor. So it's a very, very feminine midah. When a woman is coming from a space of martyrdom, she's not at all in touch with her height. She's not in touch with that inner light, with who she is, her essential value. She's very much in this victim mindset of putting everybody else ahead of her. So she's not in a space of acknowledging God because she's not seeing her gifts. She's not seeing what she's receiving from him. She's actually very bitter. She feels like there's lack. There's resentment.
Yeah, she's also carrying her load in a way that doesn't acknowledge God's presence. She's feeling burdened.
She's in this space of like, if I don't do it, nobody else will.
Yeah,
and
I have to hold
the whole
this
world will fall
up.
apart.
Yeah.
Right. There's a very almost, it sounds funny, but like egotistical undercurrent there. It's all dependent on me.
It's just a confusion of self, like a misunderstanding of self. And that's why everything is not working. The core is off.
So there's that lack of humility. There's a lack of acknowledgement. And then, of course, she's not feeling so splendorous.
Splendid.
So splendid because there isn't that outpouring of joy and an essential value. So for a woman who's in that martyrdom, looking at this midah, exploring, dabbling in it is really the way out.
Yeah, and that was really beautiful. I think practically what like you said, dabbling in hide could look like is just, I think, thinking about starting with thinking about humility. How have I perceived humility until now? Has the humility been misinterpreted? Like, has the martyrdom and the humility been put together? And in which case, I have an incorrect version of humility. And then gratitude, active gratitude, just acknowledging Hashem, which already takes a load off. And gratitude to the people around you for their contribution to you. And the acknowledgement of how much you are supported in your role as a mother, as a wife, as a woman. When I think about how many people help me in my life, be a mother, be a wife, be a teacher, it's, I say, like, it takes a village. There's a whole, if I'm ready to look at that, I'm humbled by how much support and how kind people are. And then I'm very aware that I can't do it on my own and fine with it. Happy to and grateful for that support and to feel like it's shared with my community and obviously Hashem.
So beautiful. You could literally just sit and contemplate on how much you are receiving that you're not acknowledging, that you don't even think about on a daily basis. And it's such a humbling and beautiful experience. And what I'm hearing from what you're sharing is that for the woman who is coming from that space of demanding what she wants, what she needs, if she were to even just consider this, even for a moment, all that energy kind of just melts away. Because it's a very humbling experience to start thinking about all the moving pieces that have created you to be who you are, and and everything that's happening for you to be here. That humility, I feel like, is the antidote to the demand protective energy of the woman who asserts herself.
Beautiful. So here's to humility and gratitude and being oh so splendid as a result.
Yeah, would love to just see women shine, right? You just want to see women shine. Love that vision. Okay, till next time, Chayale.
Bye. We would love to hear your feedback, thoughts, and questions.
Please leave a comment below or email us at yourrelationshift@gmail.com.
Looking forward to connecting with you.
See you next time.